Welcome in everyone to the Larsonland podcast. I'm your host Sawyer Hill, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Dylan Bradshaw. We come in here every single week and talk about all things involving the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series champion, Young Money Kyle Larson, and also grandfather clock winner Kyle Larson. Big time win today at Martinsville. Dylan, you're going to have to fill me in a little bit on the race today. Kyle was able to pick up his second win of the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series season and his fourth win of the year overall. I wasn't able to catch the race on TV. I was listening to it on the radio, driving back from North Carolina. I was doing girlfriend stuff this weekend. I was only an hour away from Martinsville. When I was leaving today, I was debating on going to the race. Kind of regret not going now.
Yeah, I mean, it's as you would expect a Martinsville race. I mean, we kind of all going into it expected to be better with this new package. We had a good race at Coda on the road course. Richmond was pretty good, a lot better from last year, but I would say Martinsville is about the same that we saw last year. You know, not too much passing, pretty much just stayed on the inside line. Richmond, we kind of saw the outside line coming into play. I was expecting that going into Martinsville, but no outside line today. Not too much tire fall off. It was just kind of follow the leader for the most part. A lot of guys let a big chunk of laps. Priest, he led all of stage one. Harvick won stage two. Stuart Haas today was just lights out. They led like I believe it was 264 laps to 400 laps. So Stuart Haas definitely looked like the team to beat. But ultimately Larson came through. He was the only one at the end of the race. Had a two tire strategy. Everyone else took four, and it paid off for sure. I mean, he restarted fifth. The four guys in front of him stayed out. He won the race off pit road with the two tires, and kind of just made his way up. He was a lot quicker, and got that first win at Martinsville. It was a long time coming for him. I mean, he said like he never thought he'd win this race. So much practice has gone into it. And now he has to clear a spot for the grandfather clock. So big win. Hendrick is just continuing the momentum all year round. Doesn't seem like anyone can even come close to competing with Hendrick this year. I mean, if it's not Byron, if it's not Larson, I mean Bowman, he's been the most consistent finisher this year. Elliott first race back picked up a top 10. So when Elliott gets in the groove of things, I think he's going to be definitely in the mix with all the other guys. So yeah, big win, two wins on the year, and let's keep it going.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. I was hoping to get home in time to watch the end of the race, but the race went by fast. It was less than 3 hours from flag to flag. I love that they moved it up 10 minutes. I wish they had moved it up 2 hours or something. I mean, but love that. And like you kind of said, like Kyle's comments after the race, talking about how he never really expected that he would ever win at Martinsville. I flipped to listen on the radio on the NASCAR app. I flipped to the team radio right as Kyle was crossing the finish line, and he came on the radio after the race and said, I never thought I'd be able to win a race at Martinsville, but I think we talked about it last week on the podcast. The second place finish at Martinsville in the fall in the Hail Melon race. I thought that Kyle was going to be able to come in today's race. I definitely expected this run based on practice and qualifying on Saturday. I was a little bit surprised how far back all the Hendrick cars were, but definitely the pace was there today. Definitely took a little bit of strategy and luck with cautions and stuff like that. I think to get Kyle in the position to ultimately win, but uh, really really good race, and looking forward to the rest of the season because the Hendrick cars are super fast in the short tracks, and I think that's what it takes to win a championship. We talk about Phoenix. I mean, that's the final race of the year. Kyle was the best at Phoenix, and obviously didn't pick up the win that week, but really good at Richmond, a similar track to Phoenix. Martinsville, another short track. That's an important race too because that's the race right before Phoenix, the second to last race of the year. So if he doesn't win one of the two races prior to that in the playoffs, then a win at Martinsville and being able to go back to back would be huge in the fall.
Yeah, it definitely helps. I mean, I think that was their 28th win at Martinsville, leading all time. So Hendrick definitely never fails to bring the heat at Martinsville. Going back to like the practice and qualifying, a lot of people were kind of worried that he was going to be super slow. But if you looked at his, I think it was his 30 lap averages in practice, he was the fastest car. Kind of had a long run setup. I think his car was just set up to for the race. A lot of other guys that qualified in front. We're kind of just set up for qualifying. But yeah, man, it was. I wish the race was better. I mean, it's nice we got the Larson win. Larson's just on fire. He's the leader in laps led, I believe. I know he was going into it. I'm sure he still is the
Yeah.
leader in laps. So I mean, dude, pretty much every race this year he's been in contention for a win. I mean, he's been up front pretty much every single race this year. We just get that run of bad luck, whether it's Priest, Almirola, Briscoe, whoever it may be, ending the day. But yeah, it's just so much momentum, and I think we're kind of getting. I don't want to put too much pressure, but I think we're kind of getting a little bit of hint of 2021 Kyle here in this 2023 season. You've got that win last year. It was a long stretch until we got another win. Kind of struggled a lot last year, but we've had some bad luck too this year. But with the bad luck, like I just said, I mean, he's the leader in laps led. He's still putting up great finishes, great performances, getting those points. So, yeah, it's just been a great year for him so far, and I hope it continues.
Absolutely, and to that point, I think like you said, it's been not just there hasn't been a race this year where Kyle hasn't had has had a car that wasn't capable of being up front and winning a race. I mean, he could easily have 4 or 5 wins this year. I know that's crazy to say, and obviously, that for a variety of different reasons, he doesn't have 4 or 5 wins, but he had the car. There were multiple races where he had a car capable of winning that he didn't, and I think you can't say the same about last year in 2022, where there were races where they just weren't even competitive. I mean, they weren't even in the realm of being up there competing for the win. And as we go on in the season, it's good to see that and carry over. And really, like to your point earlier, all the Hendrick cars being super fast at all the tracks. It's across the board. It's not just Kyle. It's not just William, but every different type of track. The Hendrick cars look like they're speedy, and going into Talladega this coming weekend, I hope that carries over. Definitely another track that Kyle has historically not been so great at, being a super speedway. But maybe he can check off another tough one off the bucket list after Martinsville. Maybe he could follow that up back to back with a Talladega win.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping for it. He picked up that top five last year in the spring race. I think he finished fourth in that. He's been qualifying really good for it though. Since he's been at Hendrick, he's qualified top five 3 times for Talladega. So, I mean, Hendrick always seems, just the Chevys in general, they always seem to just bring a really good qualifying car on the super speedways, and then they ultimately don't end up doing anything. Like for instance, Daytona, the Stenhouse was the 500 winner. That was like the first Chevy in years. I mean, Chevy just hasn't done too well at the super speedways, but yeah, I mean, I'm hoping it runs good. I mean, he's been better at the super speedways. Daytona, I mean, he was up front a lot of the time until he was involved in that wreck. So I do think he is kind of working on his super speedway racing, trying to get better. Martinsville, he never thought he'd get a Martinsville win. Here we are. Talladega, Daytona, probably never thinks he's getting a win there, but hopefully it will come, and we just keep it going.
Yeah, I mean, the name of the game at Talladega is always just staying out of trouble. I mean, same thing at Daytona and I guess Atlanta now too. But it's if he can avoid mayhem all day and stay up front, he proved. I think last year he was fourth. I think in the spring race, and then 18th in the fall. If he can stay out of trouble like he did in the spring and be up front and be there to maybe make a move, I think it's all about kind of being there and being able to use what you've learned from the past to apply that to the next race. I mean, we looked at Daytona from this year where Kyle kind of made a move at the end of the race. He was there in the closing laps. He had a chance of winning and just made a move that wasn't necessarily the best, and maybe he didn't have a choice at Daytona, but I think he'll definitely that's one where he'll put that in the memory bank and move into Talladega, and maybe that will be something that could help him win at Talladega this coming weekend. But aside from NASCAR, I think we got to back up a little bit to. We didn't talk about it. We haven't talked about it yet on the podcast. High limit at Lakeside last week on Tuesday night. Dylan, what were your fast, just quick thoughts on Lakeside? I mean, for me, it was. I think the car count was great, but there's definitely some things, nitpicky things I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was good. Like you said, car count, it was definitely a stout field. All the superstars were there, competing. The feature, I mean, Larson started 16th, I think it was. So he definitely had to grind his way back. Good amount of cautions kind of put him up there. He ended up getting the fifth place finish, but a lot of guys made a lot of moves, a lot of passes. The biggest one I can think of, Macedo, he started like 22nd, went through the B main, ended up second. He was a good one there. I thought Rico had it in the bag
That
at
was your
Lakeside,
pick.
dude. That was my pick. I called it, but he got that flat. I think he came on the caution, then he was going around and got the flat. So I don't think anyone was really catching Rico though, but ultimately Selzy picked up the win. But I mean, I thought it was a pretty good show. I think High Limit did a good job. It was a good inaugural race. A lot of good coverage from the High Limit series. So I'm really excited for the next one and the upcoming races. But yeah, I think it was a good show.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously qualifying, there was the incident, um, a driver getting injured and having like an hour long delay there. I think with that being said, I obviously very happy that the driver was okay and was able to you know basically walk away from the incident. But I think that on flow, the coverage was just it was weird for me. I mean, because we especially coming off of a week where we lost a driver in a USAC sprint car race the week prior. Uh, the broadcast was dead silent. I mean, there was no updates. I mean, I understand if it's not good, you don't want to hear you don't want to speculate. You don't want to try and say something that's wrong. But I think something has to be said within an hour's of time. I mean, people are going on social media and starting rumors at that point, and it's just I think it was a little bit of a bad look. I know some people weren't really pleased with the coverage in that aspect. I understand it's a super tough situation, but everybody was super worried. Everybody was, wanted an update, and going an entire hour on live broadcast, just staring at the track surface to the right of the incident. It's like, what's going on? Like, let's get some kind of update. So that was my first thing. And then my second thing was, I think this was one of the most stout 410 sprint car fields that we're going to see the entire year. I mean, we're going to see bigger fields in some other big marquee events this year, but we had everybody there. I mean, it was the All Stars, the Outlaws, the High Limit, the High Rollers, as they're calling them. Everybody was there. 56 entries. And with that being said, it was a very exciting field of cars, but I don't think that level of excitement transferred through the broadcast very well. I think that the level of excitement when you were watching the broadcast, it just seemed like you were watching some normal sprint car event. I mean, it seemed like I was watching a broadcast of a local track, like watching a weekly show or something like that. It doesn't, it, with the amount of drivers that were there, the hype that was at the track, I don't think that it necessarily came across that way on flow from the broadcast booth.
I think we might just be spoiled by Johnny Gibson. I think we've just heard him too long calling it. No, no, the whole race just he's so hyped with everything. He's screaming. He just gets everyone excited. But yeah. As far as the broadcast, that hour-long silence, that definitely was a bad situation. People were going on social media asking, I just tuned in. What happened? Is my flow messed up? There's no audio. There's nothing, and everyone's just sitting in there scrolling on social media. I was on Twitter just nonstop refreshing. Finally got a guy that worked for Flow Racing. He wasn't like a direct guy, you know, necessarily to that broadcast, but he gave an update, said he was okay, and they kind of just said it. The long time had to do with the car. Car was just completely destroyed. They just took forever cleaning it up, but yeah, it just took way too long for them to make an announcement. Between that guy announcing it and then the announcement on the broadcast, it was like 20 or 30 minutes later. So
Right.
yeah, they definitely need something fixed there. But yeah, I mean, I agree with your point too. I think it could be a little more hype with the guys that you see, best the best. I mean, literally every single guy that you see, World of Outlaws, USAC, All Star, whatever. It's just those type of guys. You just need a little bit of excitement to it. So yeah, I agree with your point, but yeah, it's not Johnny Gibson.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. We are very spoiled by Johnny Gibson. I think obviously one of my favorite people in racing. I love listening. I mean, I tune into an outlaw race a lot of times. He's what makes that series in a way for me. It's like you go and watch one of those races and it's it could be the most boring race ever. It could literally be nothing going on, no passing, rubber down track, whatever. And Johnny Gibson's going to call it and make it exciting from the broadcast booth. And I think the race was certainly exciting at Lakeside. I mean, it was a good race for sure. The track really came together well. I think there were points of the night where it looked like it was going to be top dominant at some points, and then at other points it looked like it was going to be bottom dominant. But in the feature, it kind of cleaned off really well, and a 2-lane surface for sure. But in the broadcast booth, it was like I wanted to just hear that. I mean, the Macedo charge from 22nd to second, there needs to be some hype on that. Kyle Larson from 16th to 5th. Rico dominating the race, and then the heartbreak with 5 to go. There needs to be some more emotion, Dylan. I think maybe we need to be in the booth.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we don't have the, that's above our pay grade, I would say, being in the booth. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of guys. It was a good race. A lot of times with a sprint car race, you don't get a whole lot of passing. Where they start, a lot of times it's kind of around where they finish. But you know, we had Brian Brown starting 18th, finishing ninth. We had Logan Stewart starting 14th, finishing sixth. Gravel 12th, finishing fourth. Macedo, the biggest one, like we said earlier, 22nd, finishing second. Obviously, Larson 16th. So there's a lot of guys that came in the teens and they captured a top 10 finish, and that's really exciting. It was a good race, good amount of passing. So yeah, it was an exciting one, and Lakeside definitely put on a good show.
For sure. I definitely don't mean to be overcritical on anything. Just kind of pointing out some little things that I picked up on at least. But looking forward to the rest of the high limit season. Next up for the series, April 25th, right after next weekend's Talladega race. The series goes to the 34 Raceway, and really looking forward to that event. But in terms of Kyle Larson's racing upcoming, we got a pretty busy week coming up for Young Money. Ben Shelton posted on Facebook today or I think yesterday actually, that Kyle Larson is going to be hitting both of the Castrol Flow Racing Night in America Series races on Tuesday night and Wednesday night. Tuesday night, Kyle will look to back up his win from last year at Eldora. What a dominant performance that was. I think there was only like 5 cars that finished on the lead lap that night. I think, and then on the second night, Wednesday night, they're going to go to the Brownstown Speedway where Kyle ran 5th last year and JD picked up the win. Exciting stuff. I think both races $23,000 to win. Don't expect Kyle to run the entire Flow series, but definitely 2 big ones, and excited for some more midweek racing.
Yeah, I mean, it's more races on the schedule. We went that long time without having any dirt whatsoever. We had Vado, and then there was just a huge gap after that, but with no dirt racing. But yeah, I think it's going to be a busy month for Kyle. There's a lot more potential races that he could hit on the schedule. That kind of meet up with NASCAR. So that's exciting stuff. Seeing him more, it's the better. But after this month, I don't know if he'll be in the sprint car more or the late model more. Only time will tell with that. But a lot of we try our best to cover it. A lot of times it's just spontaneous announcements with the schedule. As everyone knows, there's really not a set schedule with him that anyone has. They occasionally put out the newsletter announcing their schedule, but other than high limit, which are all confirmed because he's full time, and NASCAR, everything in between is just kind of up in the air. So of course, look to Larsonland for that info. We try our best to cover that and getting his schedule out to everyone because, at the end of the day, everyone wants to go see him race at their local track. It's kind of hard to, just drop everything and go to the track. So we try our best to kind of, confirm that he'll be there before the day of him racing. We put out the race days a lot of times just the day of, and everyone just has to kind of, frantically run around to try to get to the track in time. I'd done that before at the Bubba race. It was just kind of a last minute deal. Jumped in the car, got down there right before hot lap. So I can feel that. But yeah, exciting stuff. Really looking forward to it and continuing the streak of racing. Got a win at Richmond. Wish we got Bristol Dirt, kind of continuing that streak into Martinsville, get the 3 in a row. But it's looking up for Young Money, and the season's going well so far.
Absolutely. Lots of dirt stuff coming up. Maybe even some stuff this coming weekend surrounding the Talladega event. Nothing confirmed there yet, but looking forward to the upcoming couple of weeks. Things are starting to pick up, and Kyle Larson's definitely starting to get on fire a little bit. Two NASCAR Cup Series wins and 4 wins total on the season. We'll be here to cover it all every single week here on the Larsonland podcast and all of our social media channels on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as usual. I think that's going to pretty much wrap up today's show. Big time win at Martinsville uh, today, but we'll be back again next week to recap the NASCAR Cup Series race from Talladega and all of the dirt late model action upcoming this week for Kyle Larson. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please follow our podcast so you never miss a thing. Have a great rest of the week, everyone, and enjoy the on-track action at Eldora, Brownstown, wherever else Kyle Larson's going to be racing, and at the Talladega Super Speedway. We will see you in the next episode.